Again, here's just a sheet. And
so these are the sheets right here that you have on your website?
Yes.
Oh.
I don't know if this pattern's up there yet, but there are other ones, I believe.
Very cool.
And so with this, I'm going to think of having these already cut out, but I'm just going to, again, get myself some squares. And for this one, I'm going to have 5 larger petals and 4 medium petals. And the squares don't have to be perfectly square or exactly the same, just, you know, general, more approximately the same as each other.
All right. I really do love the patterns of these papers, especially combined. They're very, very cute.
Yes, I like mixing. I did that a lot when I was in the design industry. So that's definitely one thing that has carried over into my cakes.
Mm-hmm. I can
sometimes
see that.
People get it and sometimes people don't, but that's okay. Sometimes I think it's crazy, but I like it. So.
Oh, I think it's totally. It really is. I am going back to it again, but you can really see the design style, your background in what you do. I love it.
Okay, so now I have my 4 medium size and larger ones, and usually with this I'll do 1/4 inch increments, where, you know, say if this was a 3-inch square, then I would try to get this next size down as close to 2 3/4 as possible, because that just gives you a nice differentiation between your petals. So with these ones, I am going to cut actually all 5 sheets together, because I know right now I have a really sharp scissor, and I know this paper is pretty well conditioned. It's not really dried out. It's brand new paper, so I can cut them all at once without getting frayed edges. Sometimes if your paper is dry, you can't do this many at once. You can only do 1 or 2 without getting the jagged edge. So I have my whole stack of my larger petals, and I'm going to essentially try to make a teardrop shape in my paper here. And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, because flowers are not perfect. They look better, a little bit different. And so you can see you get a large teardrop shape. And we're going to cut about 1/4 inch up to maybe actually even a 1/2 inch slit at the bottom here. And that's going to help us shape our petal.
I wanted to jump in really fast. You guys have about 1 more minute. If you haven't entered the giveaway, it's down below. So if you haven't entered, hurry and do that. You've got like 10 seconds left.
Go.
Yeah. Hurry and enter.
Oops, sorry, like out of the screen. Okay, so I did the teardrop shape and the slit on both sides. I also had, again, cut out 1 1/4 inch round fondant back and about 1/4 inch. This one might be a little bit less thickness. We're going to flip these all over, and if your work surface starts to get sticky, because it will, because piping gel will be everywhere, I just take a wet paper towel, damp paper towel, and then also make sure you go back and dry it. You don't want any water left.
Perfect.
All right. So flip them all over. And for this, we are not going to cover the entire petal, but just maybe the bottom 1/4 of the petal with a little bit of piping gel, the bottom being the part where it's the point of the teardrop and where the slit is. And I'll do all of them at once. And this depends, either doing them at once or in series. That will depend on how big your flower is. If you're doing a lot of petals, I wouldn't suggest doing them all, because by the time you get done, your first ones would probably be dry. But in this case, we just have a few, so it should be fine. A little bit of piping gel on the fondant back. And then we're going to start with our largest petals and place them on the outside of our circle. And to cup our petal, we are going to fold that slit. I fold them right side over left, which I know obviously will be backwards, I think, here. So right over left, and just pinch it, and you can see how it cups the petal, gives you, a rounded shape. And depending on how tight you pull these, will be how cupped your petal will be. And for the outside, we don't want them too cupped, so just a nice, just a nice little overlap with a nice small curve.
Perfect.
And then I'm going to attach it just to the edge of the circle. I don't know if you can see. We're going to do that with all of them, overlapping as we set them down just slightly over the previous petal that we put down there. I'll go around the whole circle with these, doing that.
Perfect. So again, I know that you said this when you first started this flower, but there are people asking about this particular print. You said you don't have this up on your website yet?
I don't think so. I don't think that it is.
Okay, but you will have it. You will have it available. Is that because they are loving this?
Yeah. Maybe I do need to, since if there's demand for it. Yes, we will try and get this one up.
There are quite a few requests. So.
Okay. Okay, so again, with the next petals, we'll do the right over left to cup, and just a little bit more of an overlap to get it a little bit tighter of a petal. And when we set them down inside here, let's see, you're going to overlap the seams, just as you would, when you're making a gum paste flower or any other flower. And do that with all four.
Do you have a name for these flowers, or?
Well, not really. This one in the Craftsy class is called the Stylized Ranunculus. And I'm only hesitant to say that it does have some quality similar in terms of, the rounded petals and stuff, but all of these ones in particular are really just meant to look like a paper flower. They're really not supposed to be botanically correct in any way, obviously. I mean, they're not. So
yeah, hard to name them.
It's hard for me to name them. I just save my more rounded one. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So here it is finished with all those petals in there. And if we have time, I can do the center real quick. Are you still?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. I think we have some time left. And I think everyone would love to see it. So.
Okay. For the center, it's just going to be this little fringy guy here. And I cut 2 strips. And this is a good use for your scraps, because you'll have a lot of scraps from making these things. And so I just happen to have a little polka dot piece and a pink piece left over. And these are about 3/4 of an inch to maybe a 1/2 inch in width, and then about 6, maybe 7 inches long. And I'm just going to hold them together and line them up while I make a bunch of little cuts in them. The thickness of how far I'm going here, I'm not really being particular about that. I just want a little bit of a fringe. They do make scissors, I believe, that are called fringe scissors, and they have multiple blades. You could cut, 4 strips at a time or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Try to get
that would be convenient for
yeah. I might have to invest in those. Yeah, just go all the way down. And when I'm cutting, I'm not cutting all the way to the bottom. You can tell I'm probably leaving about, I don't know, 1/4 of the width of the paper left. You don't want to cut all the way down, because you still want your little pieces to be attached. You can tell I'm not trying to be exact by any means.
Yeah, well. Yeah.
I could sit here all day trying to make them exactly the same width apart.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing about flowers, is they're not supposed to be perfect, so it's all good. Right?
I know, very forgiving and nice. And then I did leave maybe about a 1/2 inch, 1/4 of an inch of blank paper here. And that'll help us anchor it once we roll it up. Again, I'm going to flip them over and add piping gel just to the bottom part where the fringe is not. That little space that you left at the bottom. That's where we want to apply our gel to. We keep creeping out of the screen here.
That's easy to do.
Yeah. It's a little bit of an awkward way to go about working.
Okay, someone's asking, can you use wafer paper punches?
Oh,
Or paper
paper
punches.
punches, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's something that is in your crafty class. I purchased and watched your crafty class because I thought it was awesome. So, but yes, there are. She shows how to do stuff like that in her crafty class. So it's definitely I would highly recommend the crafty class.
Yeah, it does show. So it does show the flower working on now, and aside from the center part, but it does have a lot of other wafer paper techniques. It's not just
Hmm.
flowers. So, and it,
Yeah.
if anything, it just kind of will spur, hopefully, your inspiration to kind of come up with
Well, it
other
absolutely did with
ways to use
me.
it. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much. I'm nowhere even near knowing like everything there is to do with it. Like I feel like there's just so much. So many options out there for it, and I'm
Hmm.
kind of excited that other people are using it now to be able to see what everyone's coming up with. Okay, so I took those two fringy pieces after I put the piping gel, and I actually have laid them on top of each other. And I'm going to then, again, with my fancy skewer, you can do this with your finger, but I just find it's a little bit quicker to just to help you wrap it around. So just roll it up. It's going to want to move and, not match up perfectly. And again, that's totally okay. Just going to roll it as much as possible. Okay. And there should be enough piping gel on there for it to stick onto itself here at the end, but if not, if mine's not sticking that well, I'll just add a little bit more. Okay. And then with these ones, I sometimes will just leave them on here to dry because what we're going to do now is want to kind of fringe these out. And with it still being wet, it makes it a little bit more difficult to work with. I'll go ahead and try to do it for you guys here.
All right, someone's asking in your wafer paper class on Craftsy, do you show how to cover the cake tiers with wafer paper, like with this cake you showed?
To wrap them, I do show how to do die cut wrapped tiers, which is with those scrapbooking punches and stuff we were talking about. Not solid sheets, but essentially it's the same process.
Thing, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, and a little bit more intense to have the die cut one.
Yes, yeah. So if you can do that, then you can definitely do
exactly.
the plain sheets.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so like I said, in a perfect world, you would have had to dry one of these and then been able to kind of fluff this out a little bit more. Like you could see in the other flower, they really kind of were open. But for this purpose, it's still a little bit tacky. So, and to attach it, I'll just, again, use piping gel because I use piping gel for everything. But you could use royal icing or melting chocolate if you wanted, to use that. That would work just fine as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I am just going to squish it down into the center here, and it will take a little bit of time to hold. So I would just set this aside and let it dry for a little bit. And then on the other one, you can see there's just a little ball of fondant that I shoved down in there to cover that little gap.
Mm-hmm.
You could use stamens, which would be kind of cute, or a sugar pearl or something like that to finish it off.
Very cute.
And that's it.
Love it. I love it. Right, so we have a question about storage and shelf life. How do these last for a long time? Is there a certain way to store them?